You no longer beg them to come back. You no longer wait for an apology. But deep inside you, there is still a restlessness that never truly settles. Why did they leave like that? Why did everything end without an explanation? Why did that door close so fast, so cold, so silent? You tell yourself you just need one final conversation, just a few minutes, just to understand, just to have closure. But every night, when everything grows quiet, the questions return, not because you are weak, but because you are human. And what if I told you that this silence is not accidental? What if God is intentionally withholding that closure? Not to punish you, but to protect you from what your heart is longing for in the wrong direction. Today, stay here, because maybe what you're missing isn't an answer from them, but truth from God. The truth is, you don't actually want them back anymore. You're not dreaming of a perfect ending either. What you want is understanding. Understanding, so you can stop asking yourself where you went wrong. Understanding, so you can stop replaying every word, every message, every moment. Understanding, so that when you lie down at night, your heart isn't weighed down by nameless questions. There are nights when you close your eyes but can't sleep, not because you miss them, but because your mind keeps circling one thought. What if I had said it differently? What if I had stayed silent a little longer? What if I had tried harder? You're not crying because they left. You're hurting because you don't know why, because you never received confirmation that you weren't useless, that you didn't love the wrong way, and so you begin to blame yourself for trusting too much, for hoping too deeply, for not seeing what you think you should have seen sooner. But listen to me. Those questions do not make you weak. They only prove that you loved with your whole heart, and a heart that has truly loved always needs understanding before it can finally let go. Here is a truth few people are willing to admit. Your heart doesn't actually need more information. What it longs for is reconnection. You say you just need a reason, just one last conversation to understand what happened. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll see it never stops at understanding. Because if they explained gently enough, if they said it wasn't your fault, if they told you it was just bad timing, something dangerous would be reignited inside you. Hope. Hope that maybe there's still a chance. Hope that if you wait a little longer, hope that if circumstances change, things might be different. And misplaced hope doesn't heal you, but it traps you. It keeps you standing still in a place you should have left long ago. God knows how fragile the human heart is when a door is still cracked open. One unfinished conversation, one ending that isn't fully closed. That's all it takes for you to return again and again. So sometimes, God doesn't close the door slowly. He shuts it completely, without warning, without giving you time to negotiate with your emotions. Not because he is cold, but because he is protecting you. Because only when something truly ends does your heart finally listen. And only when false hope is cut off can real healing begin. The Bible tells a very short story, but one powerful enough to shape a lifetime. The story of Lot's wife. When God led their family out of a city about to be destroyed, He gave one simple command: do not look back. Not because God wanted control, not because He was cruel, but because everything behind her was collapsing. Yet she looked back. Just once. Not because she wanted to return and live there, but because she was still attached, still connected, still wanting to see what she had left behind. And in that moment, she was pulled back into the very thing God was rescuing her from. She didn't just stop, she was frozen. That story isn't only about a destroyed city. It's about the human heart, about our tendency to look back at what's familiar even when it has hurt us. The principle is clear. When you look back, you stop moving forward. When you try to understand what God has already removed, you delay what He is preparing ahead. God doesn't tell you not to look back to punish you. He tells you not to look back to save you. Because some things, if you keep turning toward them, will prevent you from ever moving on. There is another truth you must face, even though it's uncomfortable. What's holding you right now isn't love, in its attachment. You open your phone, not because you want to talk, but because you want to check, to see if they posted something new, to see if they watched your story, to see how their name still lives inside your mind. Each time, your heart beats a little faster. Your brain releases a familiar sensation, not happiness, habit. Science calls it dopamine. Your heart calls it missing them. But in reality, it's an emotional loop you've unknowingly become addicted to. You feel empty when you don't check, restless when you don't know what they're doing. And every time you look again, you feel worse. Not lighter, not more at peace. That's why God doesn't give you closure. Because as long as there's a reason to reach out, as long as one door remains open, that attachment will never break. God isn't denying you to hurt you. He's helping you detox. Like a wound trying to heal, if you keep touching it, it will never close. Silence is not abandonment. It's necessary distance, so your heart can be cleansed. And only when attachment is broken, can you finally distinguish between real love and what has been keeping you in pain. So what do you do now? Not tomorrow. Not when you feel better. But right now, you stop. Stop texting. Stop checking. Stop allowing yourself to just look once, because there is no just once. One look is enough to pull you back into the old cycle. One memory is enough for your heart to start negotiating again. Think of it as a cleansing. 30 days of no contact. 30 days of not looking. 30 days of not asking what they're doing. And then you break it. On day 29. Out of curiosity. Out of a moment of weakness. And everything resets. Not because you are weak, but because healing does not happen when you keep reopening the wound. So be brave. Delete the number if you need to. Unfollow if you need to. Creating distance is not bitterness, it is obedience. God is calling you forward, but you cannot walk ahead while your eyes are fixed behind you. Every time you don't check, you choose life for your heart. Every time you stop, you give healing one more day to finish its work. There is something very important you haven't seen yet. If you had received the closure you were craving back then, things might have turned out much worse. Imagine them sitting across from you, looking at you with familiar eyes, speaking words that sound reasonable, that they weren't ready, that they were confused, that circumstances didn't allow it. You wouldn't feel free. You would start excusing them. You would tell yourself they didn't mean to hurt you, that if you were just a little more patient, things could be different. And excuses lead to compromise. You accept less. You endure more. You shrink yourself to fit into a place that was never prepared for you. Step by step, you become trapped, not by them, but by the reasons you create to stay. God saw this before you did. He knows that when you're hurting, you don't make wise decisions. You make desperate ones. You fear loss more than pain, so God decided for you. He didn't give you room to negotiate with your suffering. He didn't give you reasons to turn back, not because He wanted to take away your choice, but because He was protecting your future self. One day, that version of you will look back at this moment and whisper, "Thank you, God, for not giving me what I begged for back then." The Bible tells another story, longer and deeper, the story of Joseph. He wasn't just rejected, he was betrayed by those closest to him, sold like property, left in pain and injustice. If anyone deserved an explanation, it was Joseph. If anyone had the right to ask why, it was him. But Joseph didn't receive immediate closure. He didn't get a clarifying conversation. He only had years of silence, days of being forgotten, nights of not knowing where life was going. And then, time passed. God raised him to a position he could never have imagined. One day, the very people who had harmed him stood before him. Joseph didn't say they owed him an explanation. He didn't ask why. He said one sentence that changed how we see rejection forever. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." In that moment, every wound was redefined. Betrayal was no longer the end. It became alignment. What you call abandonment, God calls rearrangement. What you think is loss may be the transition needed to place you correctly. Not every rejection is failure. Sometimes, it is exactly how God leads you to where you truly belong. And here is the final truth you must face. You are not missing an explanation. You already have your answer. It's not in what they said. It's in what they did. The way they left without a word. The way you always had to guess where you stood with them. The way you felt anxious even when you were together. Real love doesn't make you shrink. It doesn't keep you in uncertainty. It doesn't tighten your chest when silence lingers. If thinking of them makes your body tense, if your chest feels heavy, if your heart isn't at peace, that isn't love. That is attachment to what has already wounded you. You didn't lose closure. You were freed from a cycle that never brought peace. You weren't denied an opportunity. You were saved from a bond that would have continued to drain you. Sometimes God doesn't answer with words. He lets actions speak. And when you're brave enough to face that truth, you'll realize that silence wasn't lack. It was grace. So right now, you don't need more understanding. You need one gentle but honest decision. Let go. Not because you are weak, but because you trust that God knows better what you should hold and what you must release. Say this quietly or out loud. I give back what God has taken. Say it again. I give back what God has taken. Each time you say it, you loosen an invisible thread, one that has held your heart too long in waiting and anxiety. You are not losing something precious. You are being released from what was draining you day by day. What lies ahead is not emptiness. It is something better you cannot yet see, more peaceful, clearer, and more aligned with who you truly are. One day, when you look back on this moment, it won't hurt anymore. You'll smile and understand that their leaving made room for life. And when you release what's behind you, you finally create space to receive what God is preparing ahead. If these words touched you, hold on to them for a moment. And if someone comes to mind, someone quietly hurting over an unanswered question, share this video with them. Maybe they are blaming themselves every night, waiting for a conversation that will never come, believing that just a little more understanding would make them okay. This message isn't here to push. It's here to permit, to allow someone to let go without guilt, to allow someone to walk away in peace, even without answers. You don't need to do much. Just share. It might be the moment another heart finally finds the courage to move forward.